National Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast. I am Jeremy, the host of the National Fire Radio channel. Thank you for joining us. If this is your first time listening to the podcast channel, welcome. If you've been here before, we appreciate your continued support and listening, and trust me, we do appreciate you being a part of the National Fire Radio community. This week, April 3rd, 2023 is an exciting time for us. April this year is a big month for us, and we're going to get into a few of those things as the weeks tick on this month. But right now, this week, on April 4th, Tuesday, and going forward on every Tuesday, will be a brand new podcast called The Size Up by National Fire Radio. The Size Up is hosted by our friend Robert Papero. We call him Pip. You know him. He's the little guy with the mohawk. He's a rock star. He's a dear friend of ours, and he's bringing forth something new. So how about this? Give a listen to what The Size Up is all about.
The Size Up by National Fire Radio is a lifestyle podcast hosted by Robert Pip Papero. Pip has been involved in the emergency services for close to 30 years, and over that time, he's learned how much your lifestyle off the job can correlate directly to your ability to do the job. Episodes of The Size Up by National Fire Radio will focus on just that. Those different factors that you can control so you're prepared when the time comes that you aren't in control. Pip's guests will come from a variety of fields and have an expertise on topics not normally dove into on the National Fire Radio platform. So sit back, relax, throw in your earbuds, and ask yourself, what's my personal size up?
I love it, Lily. Thank you for that. What a great intro into what The Size Up is all about. Launching April 4th, Pip throws it out there with his first guest on The Size Up, and that is me. I am his first guest. It's going to be a killer discussion. We've already recorded it, and I know for a fact it's going to bring tremendous value. So I'm looking forward to The Size Up. That's going to be once a week, every Tuesday. The Size Up will be on the National Fire Radio channel. Check him out over on social media as well, The Size Up, as well as thanks for tuning in. And the only way we can do this, the only way we can push this job forward together is if we get the partners involved. And the partners are our sponsors. So do me a favor, sit back and give a listen to some of the sponsors who allow us to do what we do. Our first sponsor of the podcast, Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew from Taylor's Tins have been manufacturing metal helmet fronts since 2017. With over 200,000 metal fronts in the market, they are a leader in the metal helmet front space. Their creativity as well as customer service sets them apart from the competition. They are manufacturing one-offs within 24 to 48 hours to ship to your door. Not only that, but head over to taylorstins.com and you'll see all the other products that they offer. Right now on their homepage, they have a whole page dedicated to vintage metal prints. It's so cool to see the original prints of the fire apparatus, fire hydrants, fire helmets, fire boots, flashlights. It's so cool. They are printed metal tins that hang on the wall that are aged and look to be from the original days of when these prints were drawn, looking for copyright and trademarks. It's really cool. Taylor and his crew are super creative. They're always pushing the envelope as to what products they offer to the fire service. Check them out at www.taylorstins.com. That's again, taylorstins.com to get a hold of Taylor and his crew. And in the words of Taylor, stop burning up leather. National Fire Radio, welcome back to the podcast today. Bo Yelich. 11 years in the American Fire Service. He served with a couple of very busy departments in the South. He's currently in the Madison Township, Indiana Fire Department. Bo, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
You and I go back kind of quite a ways here, since the beginning of National Fire Radio.
Yeah, I've been on top of it since day one. I absolutely love National Fire Radio.
Well, brother, that means the world to me. And through this endeavor of ours, myself and Rob certainly have gotten to know you and your father as well. And in fact, Steve, your father, from Terre Haute, Indiana.
Terre Haute.
Terre Haute. See, I get it wrong all the time.
It's all right.
I know, right? He's going to be laughing when he listens to this.
Well, like I said, it just depends on what part of town you're from, you know.
Well, that's it, man. Well, the part of town I'm from is the Northeast. It's called New Jersey, and so it certainly doesn't pronounce things like that correctly. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, but right along with, saying things in your funny accent, like fire department or whatever.
My funny accent. I see how this is going to go today. All right, I get it. Well, your father was on the show with me, and he was on very early on when we relaunched the podcast late last year. And your father's one of those guys that he's a no bullshit, in your face fireman, and he's got the biggest heart and mush in the world, and he's everything wrapped into one package. And
very much so.
I have an unbelievable respect and appreciation for your father and how he's always been encouraging to us here at National Fire Radio and so on. And truthfully, it trickles down because you've always been the same way. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know a father and son team who you two are very similar. We were just actually joking about the fact of how you guys, younger pictures, you guys look exactly the same and how you sound the same on the fire department audio, and so on. It's pretty funny, man, how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
No, it really doesn't. It's funny because my mom always jokes that I should have been a minister or dentist or something like that. But I think that she always knew I was going to be a fireman because it's my mom's fault. She's the one who always took me to the firehouse when Dad was working.
That's right.
And she carried the weight of the team when Dad was on 24s, and she did a really good job raising my sister and I. And ironically enough, my brother-in-law, he has fire department ties. His grandfather retired off the job at Chicago, and I think he still has some family up there. But no, it's you could say it's my dad, but I think it's my mom's fault because she kept taking me to the firehouse. So
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I know when your father talks about your mother, he glows, and and it's a funny relationship. Your father's humor often gets me cracking up and so on. And I know how passionate he is about the job, so I can only imagine growing up in that house and having that influence of your father trickle down to you. It was a no-brainer that obviously that in conjunction with your mom taking you to the firehouse all the time, it was a no-brainer you were going to go down that road. And in fact, you found yourself in the South going down to an aggressive department where you went to a lot of firework.
Yeah, I did. And, I always joke, and it's not really a joke. It's the reality. I think I made my first job with my dad when I was like 8.
I love it. He
was on a local volunteer fire company. I grew up maybe 3 miles from their firehouse, and he just wanted to give back to his community, doing what firemen do. And so sure enough, structure fire kicks off. He goes, "Hey, Junior, you want to go?" And I'm like, "Okay, sweet." Well, show up, house is good and going. This is like late fall, so there's a handful of acres of dried corn. Poor guy has his work truck, LP tank outside's about to blevy, the garage is on fire, the world's on fire, and here's my old man and his 8-year-old son.
I love it.
And he kind of turns around, he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, you see this red light here? When that blinks, let me know." So here I am. My old man dumps pre-connect, starts doing what he can, and I'm just hanging out. I'm like, sweet, this is all right, Well, then here comes all the tankers. Well, this area, it's very rural, and Farmer Brown, who's just hauling corn compared to water, he's who's in charge here? Not I. You see that guy over there? Yeah, him. So that was a really, I don't know. We still joke about it. And hell, man, I spent my 5th birthday in a firehouse, and I've always been hooked on the job. It's
so being a legacy fireman, then being a generational fireman, we were talking about that before, and we're going to go down that road today because I really want to hit on that because I think it's an important topic. And so that foundation that was provided to you early on, it consumed you and allowed you to want to do this job and to pursue it, and it becomes not only just a job and a career, but also a lifestyle. Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, you know, the influence you had was super strong. So as you
Sure.
progressed, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer, I think, for you. But, you know, did you try anything else before you went down this road? Did your father encourage you to be a firefighter? Did he try to dissuade you and tell you to try something else or a different trade or go to college? Like, what did all that look like?
So how this all played out was, when I was 16, one of the guys who was my dad's partner on the ladder, um, hell, I grew up with his daughters, and you know, I called him uncle. Well, in November of 2011, I started calling him chief. He had a cadet program, reached out, and I knew what I was going to do with my life. Mom's side of the family is law enforcement. My great uncle, may he rest in peace, he was sheriff of my county for about 12 years. So my cousins were going to be cops. I was going to be a fireman. Well, through course of conversation one day, it was thrown out, hey, Bo could get into this cadet program. And I'm like, hell yeah. You know, why wouldn't a 16-year-old kid who's always wanted to be a fireman not want to go be on a fire truck? So, with that, we have a military background in my family. Dad is a Marine. My grandpa was in the Navy. I had a couple medical disqualifiers, and I tried joining the Marine Corps. Hell, I think maybe 3 or 4 times in high school, and I couldn't get past my medical disqualifiers. Well, so I remember, you know, I am distraught. We had family members that fought World War II. It's just kind of what my family did.
Yeah.
And I remember the profound statement. I will never forget it. We were coming back, and I was beat. You know, I was defeated. I was in shape. I was good to go, but I just couldn't get cleared to join the Marines.
Mm.
And it was right about the time FDIC kicked off. And I remember my old man told me, he's like, I'd rather share a Maltese cross with you than an Eagle, Globe, and Anchor.
Wow.
And so that was a huge conversation that I still carry with me in my career.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I'm glad we had that talk. But moving forward, I get put on as a cadet at a 2-engine fire department, literally right across the bridge, not even 2 miles from the city he works in. So he's in Terre Haute. I was in West Terre Haute. And my very first night in a firehouse, I caught a house fire.
Nice.
I was like, hooked. And, I was addicted ever since then.
Yeah.
I remember being in the rig and I'm like, holy crap, like this is what I've always wanted to do. And it just hit me. I'm 16 years old. Granted, I wasn't able to do anything. I'm a 16-year-old cadet. Cool, I'm changing bottles. This is like backdraft, but
bro, listen, let me tell you, man, that moment for me too was overwhelming. I mean, I grew up also as a generational fireman, and so the day I was allowed to join and actually do it officially with that patch on my arm, holy shit, brother.
And that's shortly thereafter we had an acquired structure. And so we're doing live burns all day. And here I am working myself to death just to pull line, have an air pack on, pull ceiling, get dirty, go do it. And so oddly enough, we had a first in fire. It was March 28th of 2013 or 14, 2012 or 13, around there. I had just sprained my ankle at baseball practice. I'm talking 3 days before.
Right.
Well, we don't have games. We don't have practice. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the firehouse, right? So wrap up my ankle, something fierce. The department, I was missing fires. I was a white cloud as a cadet, because why wouldn't you be a white cloud when you just want to go to fires? So I tie my ankle up, something fierce. And we catch this working first in fire. And I'm like, holy crap. Well, it's a small department. So there's a guy who's full-time with my dad on the rig, me, our full-time driver, our assistant chief, who's an Indianapolis fireman, and I get thrown in the game at, 16, 17 years old. I'm like, hell yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll never forget, like, I'm this little 150-pound kid. My turnout's way more than I do. And I'm pulling rock and lath and mopping up, you name it, man. And it's just, it got in my blood early. And the earlier it got in my blood, I got addicted to it even more,
Yeah. Did you? So growing up like that and getting that hook, I mean, you found it for yourself too, as much as your family led you there, and that, strong words of encouragement and brotherhood from your own father that welcomes you into the fire service family like he did. There's huge pressure sometimes put on that generational fireman, that next guy, because not only do you feel a sense of obligation to at least meet, but you want to often exceed the expectation. And that can go two ways, right? You and I were talking about that before. And it's like, for you, there were big shoes to fill. Your father's a big personality on the fire ground. He's got a very good reputation when it comes to, strategy and tactics and just brute force and nothing but, fortitude.
My around this area, because the thing is, with specifically where we're at in mid-central Indiana, if you say, hey, you're from the Terre Haute area, that narrows it down to maybe 4 counties that might go train at maybe 3 different sites. Some states have state fire academies. Well, we have districts where, if you're a district instructor, you might go teach at fire department A for nozzles, where Thursday night you might go teach at department B doing ground ladders.
Yeah.
Around here, you can't swing a dead cat without bumping into a fireman and going, hey, Captain Yelich? Oh yeah, dude, he's a G. And his reputation, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Right. Between passion, the street cred with it, and it really, you were talking about setting up, a path to follow. I wouldn't say my parents pressured me or said, oh, you got to get on the job. It was nothing like that. My parents wanted me to find something to make me happy and be good at it.
Sure.
And it was set in stone that I was going to be a fireman. But going into where I led off as a cadet, my senior guys are Terre Haute firemen. My officers are Terre Haute firemen. Some were Indy guys, but majority of the dudes who taught me the job were taught by my dad.
Right.
And so they were hard on me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was doing a 48 and, woke up, jumped the rig at 6:50, come back, and the battalion chief comes in. Well, my bunk hasn't been made because I've been out on a run, and I get my ass chewed. Hey, why isn't your bunk made? You should know better, Junior. Why isn't coffee on? Just stuff like that. And then it turned into classes I was taken by those guys, or when my dad would teach some of my classes, I'm getting beat up on. But fast forward, and I'll never forget, I made a fatality fire, and it was an all-nighter, I remember calling some of these guys at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, hey, when you're a dick to me, I understand it, and I, like you said, we were talking about it, where I've seen both sides of generational firemen. You have guys that are motivated, going, wow, I saw my dad do this, or I grew up remembering this. I want this for myself or my kids. Then you have those that go, oh, daddy is, and daddy this, daddy that, and my dad's a whoever here, and they think they can hide and slide and do what they want because they're entitled of what their dad did or didn't do.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation because it can go two ways, right? And I wonder, and this is what I'm wondering as I sit here and listen to you. You come up and through, and you have to find your own way because you're in the shadow of your father and the legacy that he's been leaving for many years prior to you coming on board. And so you have to find your own way, which is often done through hard work, dedication, and love for the job, right? I mean, you have to do that yourself, and so there's this almost inherent obligation you have to make sure that you exceed what the perceived image was supposed to be of you, right? You have to work twice as hard as most people to make a name for yourself and create your own legacy. Whereas, go ahead.
And that's the thing is, it wasn't so much I have to, it's I want to.
Well, okay, right.
You know what I mean? And that's where, in my academy, my very first ever fire academy, prime example. What's the standard? It's like the modern fire standard anywhere else. Oh, your JPR today is forcible entry. You hit the forcible entry door a couple times, you pass your skills, you move on, you go take a smoke break, play on your phone. Me, I wanted to be good at the job, and it's not so much, oh, you're Steve Yelich's kid, he's the man. They're expecting Junior to be the man. No, it's I've sat and I've listened into the back porch conversations that my old man has had with his previous officers, and talking about, oh, this guy, he's a schmuck, thinks, he's somebody because his dad was on the job or whatever. Well, he wouldn't know how to work fighting his way out of a wet paper bag, and so I was more or less, what I got from my dad was the love of the job, which inspired me to do everything else, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It absolutely does. But see, here's the thing that I'm really interested in, right? And I want to dive into this because this is the whole point of today, is you and I really diving into this topic, right? When you're privy to conversations that other people wouldn't be privy to, there can also become a sense of entitlement, meaning that you're being educated in a different way. You're already advanced in your position in the fire service because you're privy to conversations and information that the standard new kid wouldn't ever hear or know. You're hearing stories or things about people because of where your father is. You're being educated in a different way than your standard new guy. And what happens with that information is it can go two very different ways. You can you could take it all in, but form your own opinions moving forward about individuals being spoken about, different departments and how they're being talked about, whatever the case. Or you can go the other way and jump on that bandwagon and be like, well, if these guys think this guy's an asshole, then I think he's an asshole. But the problem is then that creates that sense of entitlement because you haven't lived the experiences. You're not forming your own experiences on that person or the event to make an opinion. And you're making an opinion based on what others are telling you. And that is part of what entitlement, I think, is tearing us down. And the dangers of legacy firefighters, they feel that they're in a different place or they're privy to other information or less work than maybe the average new guy because of who they are. And I think that we have to be very careful in that.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm grateful that my parents raised me the way they did.
Boom. Hit it. I love that. Go.
Well, it's coming on the job. There's always those guys, and we'll leave it there. Everywhere has them. Whether you're, 2-engine West Terre Haute, FDNY, every job has those guys. My old man gave me one rule because I threw it out. I was like, my captain is on B shift Terre Haute, or you know what I mean? Like, hey, these guys are. He throws it out. He goes, "You're your own man. Make your own opinion."
That's it.
But what I will say, I've seen the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay, so I was able to get into more of a senior guy position in my house when I was in the Mid-South, right? The only move I really made was across the floor to the engine because I love engine work. Ironically enough, that starts from me being a cadet. I became passionate for water when I had an 1 3/4 kick my ass because I was 150 pounds, But moving forward, when I was in the Mid-South, we received a Probie straight out of the academy. and his last name sounded really familiar. And I finally asked somebody, I was like, hey, why do I know this last name? They're like, oh, his old man's this guy. Oh, okay. Well, his old man had a really, really awesome career. He was in smoky houses. He had done a lot of fireman things, medals of valor, distinguished unit citations. He lived the fireman's
Sure.
life.
Sure.
Right? Well, so then Junior reports in. Day one, he did a good job. He did the right thing. Before he reported in, came in, brought ice cream and cake, let people get to know him. The typical new guy, military grade, high and tight. Okay, Junior, I'm sure your boots are going to be polished when you get here. Cool, whatever. And so the more we get to talking to him, I'm like, wow, this kid will, he might work. First day comes in, and everything's going smooth. Well, at about noon, I see him in the recliner. Well, we're all outside doing something. Hey, man, we're washing the rig. Oh, okay. Stays right there. Okay. Well, that started a trend with him.
Sure.
So, long story being made short, he didn't feel like he had to charge after it or charge after making his own name because of who his dad was. And that landed a world of issues. Some people are indifferent about masking up in the rig. We bang out on a fire. I look across the bay and this kid's putting his face piece on. I'm like, what are you doing? I tell him, I'm like, man, you're in the freaking hood. You got all this junk and crap in the front yard. You're going to fall and sprain your ankle. Well, he didn't listen. And sure enough, he was off 2 weeks as a new guy because he didn't listen. Opposite end of the spectrum, my engine lieutenant, who I absolutely adore and would go to hell with right now if he called me, his dad was a fireman. His grandpa was a fireman. And you never knew. You never knew it. My work mom, she was the most senior person in my house besides the engine driver. And her dad was a fireman, but you never knew it. And it comes into there's just two different people, those who feel like they belong and those who fight tooth and nail to belong because of their history.
No, I get that. And that's absolutely what we're talking about, right? And so you have those two different sides of the coin. It's a curious conversation of how you end up on either side. And I think you had said something before that I think stuck with me. It was how I was raised, right? The fact that you were raised to respect the job, respect the guys in the job, and also, your father said to you, you need to form your own opinions and push yourself forward. You. You can't build it on the back of someone else. You have to build it yourself.
Right. And, it's also, even without generational in the title, there are just some people that get it,
Yeah, true.
And there's some people that just understand. And I think that comes down to that new guy coming in, getting the expectation and the standard and the mentorship to get them there. Where I lucked out was I had guys hard on me, as double-edged sword that can be, because during the moment it sucks. I will never forget being freezing cold doing 3.5 hours of hydrant drills, but it made me better.
Sure.
But at 2:00 in the morning, when you have a steamer cap froze up and you got to switch to a 3-inch cap, it's second nature. That came down to the guys being hard on me.
Sure.
And where I've seen some people dodge those generational guys because dad is a chief. Well, we don't want to be mean to baby boy, but yet baby boy is not holding the standard. And it's a cultural thing, I think.
Well, I look at it this way, right? Like, I want to break this down for a second because, like, I think about my daughter, right? So in the volunteers, right? She's going to be 16 next year. I have never, ever asked them if they've wanted to, my kids, if they wanted to, because I assume that they've been exposed to it, and if they have any interest to it, they'll come to me and say, hey, I'm interested. I'd like to do this. But they also know that if they're going to do it, they have to do it at a level that is expected, right? And that they can't
Absolutely.
get away with doing it half-ass. And I don't care if it's volunteer career. You decide to do this and you swear an oath, you have to do that job, and you have to do it to the best of your abilities and the abilities that are provided to you by the department. And so they don't have a choice. So my daughter, Lily, my youngest, she's 15. She's going to be 16. She actually made a comment not too long ago about, potentially joining a 16 as a junior. And I said to her, well, that would be great. I'd love to have you. I said, I'd love to have you in a firehouse with me, and it's something we can share. But I said, you also know what that entails. And she said, yes. Like I've made the expectation very clear as to what's expected of her. Here's the thing though. And I told her this too. You need to unlearn everything that you've learned already. Because the problem is she walks into the firehouse now with me. If I stop over, the guys are there, I stop in, or she's with me for a call, or I stop to get ice on a Saturday and the guys are hanging out, whatever it is, right? They're always
typical, I grew up with this guy, so I can
right.
walk in and say, hey, go screw yourself, whatever.
Right. They know my kids. My kids know all the guys, right? It's a great relationship in that sense that my kids feel very safe and secure with the guys in the firehouse, and the guys in the firehouse are very protective of my kids, and they know who they are and so on. So it's this very trusting relationship. But the problem is that type of relationship leads to a sense of entitlement as soon as she walks through the door as a member. She's now wearing a different hat. She's coming with a different background than, say, your other standard kid that walks in the door as a new member. And the problem is my daughter Lily will have to unlearn everything she knows about the guys, everything I've talked about the department, because she needs to form her own opinions, and she needs to form her own way of doing it and navigating the space. And I can't allow for her to ride on anything that I've done prior. She needs to find her own way. And the only way to do that is to unlearn everything she knows already and understands that she has to find her own path. And that's a very difficult thing to do.
But there's also a other side to this, right? Yeah. Form your own opinion, be your own person, do your own career. But the core values and the tradition that makes this job what this job is still passed on to those generational
yes,
kids.
100%.
And that's where, my dad has taught me a lot. Sitting on that back porch, listening to him and guys he's fought fire with. Yeah, I've heard about the same 10,000 fires for the past 28 years of my life, but I still learn from them. But what I will say, the core values, the tradition, the things that make this job so awesome and so appealing to people and make it the best job in the world, those are the biggest ones I picked up from my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm talking not just tactically. My old man is a very aggressive fireman. I'm the same way. Like you said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I have heard so many times from guys who have made fires with me, who work with my dad. Dude, you're just like your old man. Okay, Junior, we get it, But that motivates me because I'm like, yeah, my old man's in it for the right reasons. He's here to protect lives and property. With that, the driver of the ladder company he was assigned to, there's a picture of him, of this driver holding me in a swimming pool as a toddler with a little plastic fire helmet on.
Right.
That in turn has motivated me because I know and I remember what those guys went through. I know what their job was about.
Yeah.
I remember hearing, yeah, we were searching for these kids. We were searching so hard, we're throwing air bottles out the window. When it hits the fan of my own career, it's a no-brainer what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think too, what I'm getting, where I was going with that too is that like she can listen to the stories and the experiences that I share, and that certainly helps her push her own career in this forward. But she has to formulate her own opinions and get the sense of her own way. And
Right.
and I want to say this, right? Like, as much as you were influenced by your father and his friends growing up, and then you go through the cadet program and you talked about that first fire you went to, and man, that hook, I mean, you were just like, it, you can't even describe that feeling. She needs to have that feeling for herself too, because that feeling that she feels on her terms then will set the stage for her career in her either love or lack thereof of the fire service. And I don't want her to feel that obligation because she feels that she has to fulfill something for me. It's not about me, it's about her. And so she needs to have her own experiences, and the only way she's going to have an impartial experience is to do it on her terms and not somebody else's. Yeah.
And that's where it's funny because I swear I could write a book about what I didn't hear from Dad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Regarding the job, because I got promoted at my last department. I was an engine officer, had 5 guys on my shift, and my old man's been an officer longer than I've been alive. And I called him one day, and I was like, dude, why in the hell am I beating my head against a wall? He goes, oh, it means you're doing it right. And I remember the conversation. I was like, well, why didn't you tell me this? Being an officer sucks,
Yeah.
It's not just, oh yeah, I ride the front right seat and led my guys down a hallway. I told him, I was like, man, the easiest thing I can do as an officer would have a house fire as entrapment, because there I know what to do, and it's all the little things that I had to figure out on my own.
Yep.
The firehouse hierarchy. I knew what was expected of me as a new guy, but on the other side, I also had to live it.
This episode's brought to you by Fast Rescue Solutions. Fast Rescue Solutions was created with the mission to develop products and training that surpass currently accepted industry standards and that meet the operational challenges of the real world. Their vision is, always has been, and always will be to revolutionize rescue and save lives. Fulfilling both the mission and the vision, the Fastboard is a disruptive technology in rescue. Invented by 28-year Philadelphia firefighter Eric Allen, with over 20 years in the Philadelphia Fire Department Special Operations Command. He is a game changer. His crew is game-changing victim and firefighter rescue and survival. The national average time for rescuing a downed firefighter is 15 to 20 minutes using 5 or more people. The Fastboard has the ability to reduce that time to 5 minutes or less using only 2 or 3 members. That is 500 times faster than the national average. Originally designed to get downed firefighters out of a basement, the Fastboard has been proven effective in nearly every rescue scenario: RIT, confined space, trench, ice and water rescue, hazmat, mass casualty, and the list goes on and on. Its simplicity and versatility make it a game changer. For a virtual demo or more information, visit their website at www.fastrescuesolutions.com and tell the crew you heard about them on the National Fire Radio channel. Eric and his crew at Fast Rescue Solutions have become dear friends of ours, and we appreciate the support. Check them out. No, I get it. I mean, it's like, it's parenting, right? It's you let your kids fall down because they need to learn, right? Like,
exactly.
I'm the type of parent that lets my kids get hurt, or I let them venture out on their own when they were little in the backyard to, play in the woods and to fall down and get hurt and come back and spit on it and rub it off. And it's good. Go back, go play. You fell off your bike. Go get up. Like, that's certainly a big part of this. And I think that has a lot to do with what you said before about the parenting, and that's how I was raised. And I think that those are the important things, because I think when we raise good people, we create good firefighters. And I think inherently good firefighters come from good stock. And people, go ahead.
Well, think about it. I mean, shoot, go back and think of what traits make a good fireman. Compassion, respect. Then you turn it over, that's still a good person.
Yeah.
And inherently, if you listen to Mo Davis from Houston Fire, I
Oh
love this
yeah.
guy, and he was talking um, about service, and he described a situation he ran into when he was an officer about a water line busting, and he goes, "Yeah, it's a job for the fire department, you know,
Yep.
because we are there to serve people. Turn around. This is where my mom comes in. The compassion that my mother instilled in me, that love of people, makes it easy to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for kids about to go to school when, mom's cracked out or whatever. You know what I mean?
I do. I mean, I get it. I get it completely, for sure. And
And,
Mhm.
and it becomes second nature to, hey, this car on the side of the road has a flat tire. Pull the rig over.
Right.
Hey, we're getting it. But with that, hey, you're clearing off a run. There's a little kid out in the front yard. Mark in service and give that kid a plastic fire helmet, a sticker, let him climb all over the rig for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You never know. You just never know. And there's so many times that it's like a movie or whatever where I'll yell, "Hey, stop the rig!" There's kids out in the front yard. Because I remember who that was. You know what I mean?
Well, I do. I mean, I just saw it this past weekend in Alabama at a conference I was at, and I literally met a few guys that the fire service actually literally saved their lives. These kids grew up in the toughest neighborhoods, gang infested, drug infested. Their brothers and cousins have been murdered in front of them. Their families, They don't know who their mothers and fathers are. These are kids that grew up in the worst of conditions, and they found something within the fire service, or the fire service found something within them, and it gave them an opportunity to fall in love with something and appreciate something, and something gave them something back. The fire service gave them meaning. The fire service gave them purpose. The fire service literally saved their lives. That's how powerful of an institution this is. And it's driven by guys in which you're talking about. Service-minded, oriented-minded, morals, ethics, and values, empathy. People matter. We need to invest in our people. And when you find good people, or you find people needing direction, take that moment and talk with them, or pull that fire truck over and let the neighborhood kids get a red plastic helmet and climb on the truck and pull the air horn string, because you never, ever know what impact that's going to make on someone.
And, it's really funny. So I had epilepsy as a child.
Wow. Okay.
Well, my clinic was right down the road from my dad's firehouse. The only way they'd get me to go to the doctor's appointments was let me ride in the rig.
That's cool.
The day I was cleared, and you talk about mushy, get up in your field stuff, the day I was cleared, we had the cue pinned going down the avenue. And I remember still to this day, the sound of the cue bouncing off of buildings, that echo.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not, oh, cool, we're doing fireman stuff. I remember being a 3-year-old kid going, wow, this is awesome.
It's cool.
That's 25 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I've been calling it the sons and dads generation, because the sons generation obviously looks up to dad, where, like, when you started out, where my dad started out, late 80s, 90s, guys are going to fires left and right. We wanted, and we still want, to be dad. The Garrity light on our helmet, the door chalk. We don't want a safety culture. We want to be old school door kicking firemen. And I've had this conversation so many times at my firehouse, because I got a bunch of generational dudes who just want to be firemen. And that's where I'm seeing the job go back to, let's be aggressive, because it's not about us.
Yeah.
And that's where I was so grateful for how I was raised. My dad's job lost a guy in 2002, and I could go back to the house and show you where I was sitting on Dad's lap crying because I didn't want my dad getting killed.
Right. Yeah, that's all part of the equation.
But as a father, now I understand. As a young single guy, it's, hey, get in there, put the fire out, try to save a victim. Now as a father, I round that corner and I'm going, that's my kid in that house.
Right.
That's where being a generational guy, I saw the after effects of my dad making grabs or making fatality fires. I saw them. Then it turns into my own career, and I start getting motivated, going, well, this is what Dad would do. This is what this is about.
Well, I love that. I mean, that is literally what's supposed to happen, right? It's like when you all of a sudden one day you wake up and go like, holy shit, I am my dad, right? Or holy crap, I am my mom, right? Like all of a sudden that foundation for which you've grown up against, you know, or built on top of, and then all of a sudden you have that aha moment where you're like, whoa, like,
well,
okay.
And that's where, you know, I had one of those evenings at the office, and I called my dad. I literally just got in my truck, beat my head against the steering wheel. I'm like, holy shit, I got a career this? Well, I got on the phone, your go-to, you call Dad. I go, hey, you remember all the times you were a dick to me growing up? I get it. Yeah. And that's all I needed to say.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what's been really sweet about this. You know, my dad ran cross country in high school. I played baseball. I don't run because I'm a gun owner. You know what I mean? Our common ground has been the outdoors and the fire service.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and it does crack me up where guys he spent better part of a career with go, yeah, okay, Junior, you know, you're the short version, but that does pay off. Like I said, you know, there's just sometimes that what would Dad do? You know, what would Dad's generation do? Because that's who we grew up wanting to emulate.
Well, let me ask you this, right? I mean, I agree with you. I love that, the sons and dad generation. Like it's sons and dads. I love that. Sons and dads generation. I think that's going to be the top of the title of this episode. It's just it really sums up exactly what we're talking about, and I believe in that wholeheartedly, man. I mean, that is, you know, I've always looked up to my father. I've always wanted to emulate him in everything that I did. I wanted to be him and more, and I feel like I'm there at 46 years old. I've really come to understand a lot of who he is through my own experiences, and I'm very proud, and I'd like to think that he's proud of me in, you know, where I've gone as a man, as a father, as a son, as a husband, like, and as a firefighter, right? Like all those things certainly matter. So let me ask you this then, because now that you find your way to your own career, and you find now you got a bunch of years under your belt, you've been in some busy fire towns, circumstances have put you in different places in your life, and today you find yourself in Madison Township, Indiana. But you know, your career before that, your career now, you're in that middle of the road gap. You're 11 years in the fire service, and that is a unique spot today. I talk about the 10 to 20 year guy. Everybody talks about the new kid. Everybody talks about the senior man or the old guy. I love that middle generation, man, because so much is happening there. And talk to me about that a little bit, because I know you've been thrusted into maybe some senior man positions, or riding up as an officer in you know, in places that, you know, maybe you were ready, maybe you weren't ready. I mean, there's a lot of things here. So what does that look like for you at 11 years?
So I am currently in the greatest position on the job. It's really, I love where I'm at, and I'll tell you why. I am a baby-faced 28-year-old with 2 kids and a wife, but I've been on the job over a decade. So I also grew up, you know, around the job. So what I found is I can connect and bridge between that generation
Yes.
and mine.
Yep.
And the department I just left, I was telling you before we started recording, it came in as a house fire with entrapment at 28 years old. I was the youngest guy I was the oldest guy on the rig.
Yep.
My private literally just turned 21. The kid driving was 19.
Wow.
And yeah, it's great to go, hey, this is what the job's about. They're saying mom and child's trapped in this house. We're going. This is what we do. This is how you're paying the mortgage. But as essential as those lessons are, it's also been great. And I've had an absolute ball pulling them off to the side saying, hey, dude, why the hell are dishes not done? Hey, what do you mean you can't make boxed mac and cheese for yourself? You're doing a big boy job and you can't freaking boil water and put noodles in it. The same shit I caught at 16, 17 years
Sure.
old is the same stuff I could throw out to these guys. And what's so cool is I can bridge that gap. And through my time on and just kind of where I've been and the passion going back to everything, I'm going to encounter young officers. That's cool.
Yeah.
Those young officers can lean on me and go, hey, man, what do you think about this?
Yep.
That's where I want to be, because that turns into leadership from the bottom.
Yeah.
And, we round the corner, got fire showing. You can tap that young officer, say, hey, make a call. It's on you. You're good. You're good. I got you. His faith in you as the senior man, he falls back on it. And it's that never ending cycle, compared to that young fireman comes in and you have an old officer. Hey, LT comes off like a dick because of this reason. He doesn't like water spots on the engine. So when we get done washing it, make sure you wipe it off. I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
That's where you can still pass forward those core values and competencies, where it's so easy. Because think about talking to your kids. You could tell them, hey, don't put a fork in an outlet 20 times. They're not going to listen to you because you're the parent.
Yeah.
It's going to take getting zapped.
That's right.
Or when one of their friends say, hey, don't put a fork in an outlet, you're going to get zapped, they're going to listen to their friend, right? My position, and where I found the past handful of years of my career, is I can be that same guy in a firehouse and go, hey, dude, this works. And I know because I've seen it or I've done it. This doesn't work. You see what I mean?
Yep. No, I get it. I absolutely get it. And I think that's what's really cool about that. And I'm glad you brought that up about like that bridging of the gap, right? Is that, that 10 to 20 year guy rides the middle and he can relate with the upper and he can relate with the lower. And
Sure.
he's that glue, right? He's the guy that puts it together, and that the young kid can look up to as an intermediary and say like, hey man, hey, can you just like explain this to me or show me this? Like, he doesn't want to put all his cards down in front of the boss or the senior guys. So he leans on that 10-year guy that he's sitting across from, maybe in the back seat. Right. And like, there's that relationship. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you hear so much the senior man. Well, are you the senior man or the guy with the most time on?
Yeah, right. Exactly. 100%.
Where that middle ground guy is still learning. He still understands, yeah, I have a lot of work ahead of me,
Yep.
but I'm not jacked up.
Right.
It's all about interpersonal communication skills. I mean, because you can come in and it's just like being a generational guy. You could go one of two ways. It's really easy to sit, complain, and be like, wow, my job's screwed up because of this. Or you could assume that position and say, hey, newly promoted lieutenant, what do you think about this? Because this isn't working.
Yeah.
Hey, new guy, this is a standard we're setting for our organization. Why are you not living up to it?
Yep.
You see what I mean? And
yeah,
that's the cool thing is it's like you're the senior guy, but you're not. And when it happens, for me, it happened and I didn't know it.
That's interesting. Talk about that.
Well, I hit a point in my career where I was burned out. Life happens, job happens, and when it's nonstop and you start getting beat up on all ends, a person checks out, you know?
Yes.
Well, everybody goes through it. It's human nature, highs and lows. It's just life. Well, I came in and it's fuck this, fuck that. I'm over it. And I'm finding myself sitting in a recliner 12 hours a day. That's not me. I show up an hour early for work. I PTA train. I can't sit still. But then I start going, oh, I have a 6-month guy riding behind me. My driver's only been on 2 years.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. That's where I really had to step back, recalibrate, get on the phone with guys who have influenced me, and some of it was the typical stuff. Are we getting along with the administration today or not? Whatever. And you just have to reel yourself in.
Yeah, but you said
And,
you said you got thrusted in that position. You really didn't even know it. So as you're
right.
sitting there, did you feel that like, wait a minute, these 22 and 19-year-old kids are kind of looking at me, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, like I'm in a bad place myself right now.
Exactly.
I'm disgruntled. I'm not the happiest guy right now because of other shit going on. And then all of a sudden you just realize that like your persona, like what you were putting out, they were reading, and you could potentially end up creating bad for them. Right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And like I said, it's so easy to fall in the ruts that not just the job but life gives you.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was kind of a selfish approach where I was, man, this is bad, whatever. Instead of taking that commute in to calibrate, get my mind in the game, go, okay, I got 24 hours, I got to teach these guys something, because I feel obligated to teach these guys something. The job is dangerous, but it's on those guys, those middle of the road guys, those senior guys, to train young firemen.
Yes.
And I was in an environment where I didn't have any middle of the road guys. I didn't have a senior guy. I didn't have anybody to really lean on. So that's where that fire department network, going back to one of the things my dad taught me, is the mentor store is always open. Start calling people. And it just, through conversations, guys are like, dude, take time off, get your mind right, because this is toxic. And so through these conversations and just thinking about previous fires, I'm going, holy crap, I got dudes looking up to me. It's something as silly as wearing a door chalk and a helmet. I'm looking around and I'm like, holy crap, there's there's a bunch of kids rocking lumber in these rubber bands, like, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to be worth emulating.
I love it.
And then again, you talk about pressure. Well, yeah, being a generational fireman's one thing, but when you have a group of guys that are looking up to you, especially when you're around the corner and you got reports of mom and child trapped in a house, that's the real pressure.
You said something that really, there's two things there in the last minute that you said that I wrote down. The mentor store is always open. Call someone. And prior to that, I wrote down, get on the phone. You had mentioned I got on the phone to talk with some guys. How important is that network? I mean, what does your network look like? Are these guys from different parts of the job, different departments? Yeah, talk to me about that. What does that look like for you, and how important is that for you?
It is absolutely everything. And if it wasn't for my network that I started in high school, I wouldn't have ended up in the Mid-South. 2014, I was on FDIC's webpage because there's a picture of me, a guy, Mikey, he's from Laredo, Texas. My buddy Chris, he went to the Mid-South, he's from Ohio. And then Manny, I actually think Manny just retired, but he's from Patterson, New Jersey.
Yeah, my neck of the woods.
And we all did the 9/11 stair climb together.
Right.
These are guys, that was 2014. These are guys I still call. There's my one of my chiefs I worked for before I went down south, I was a paid driver at a combination apartment. I will still send him the recordings of my size ups and say, hey man, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
But there have been so many supervisory issues and leadership things that I encountered when I was a new officer that I'm calling my old officers, my old chiefs. I'm going, hey, this is what's going on. Why do I feel like jumping off a bridge? Because I don't know what to do. The conversations on the phone are, hey man, chill out. You're not Christopher Columbus. You don't have to look hard to find somebody who's done it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, that's one of my dad's favorite lines is, who do you think you are, Christopher Columbus? It doesn't take a lot to find somebody who's gone through what you're going through.
I agree with you. I agree. A network is super important, especially when, we all need a sounding board. I've learned this now more than ever. I mean, for a long time, I really didn't have anyone that I used as a sounding board. I mean, my wife's amazing and deals with me, but I don't really talk business with her or the firehouse because, frankly, I want to kind of keep it separate. And with National Fire Radio, I've come to realize there's a lot here. And my network today is 10x what it was just 5 years ago. I have the most incredible people in my life now that know every deepest, darkest thing about me, and I consider them true friends. And it's because I allowed myself to open up to people that I trusted. And I think that those relationships are super powerful, really important. I want to ask you a question. I wrote it down. It says, are you good at taking advice? I mean, you're calling these mentors, these brothers, these sisters that are out there that you have a mutual respect for. They respect you, you respect them. And when you go to them with something, they're obviously going to tell you their thoughts and opinions. Are you good at somebody else's advice?
If you would have asked me that question at 22,
Yep.
the answer should have been hell no.
Right.
At 28, yeah, I have to be, because I'm calling these people for a reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes the truth does hurt. And that leads into what we were talking about how I was checking out and I could have claimed my head was in the game, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I got on the phone with a dear friend of mine and he's like, you need to take time off and you watch Backdraft 20 times, do what you got to do. You have got to get out of this.
Yeah.
But, it comes into how do you get out of a hole?
Mm.
You find the same guy who's just in the same hole. And it's you tell your kids, take the medicine because it's good for you. Well, I don't like the taste. Well, sometimes you just got to swallow it.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
And that's where going back to that middle of the road guy, some conversations you have to have some conversations with people that you love, that is your brother or your sister. There was a young man who rode behind me and I love this kid to death. Absolutely love this boy. He's held my kid. We back when I did drink, we drank beers in my garage. Thanksgiving morning, I had to write him up. I had to ask, what the hell are you thinking? If you're getting this many flat tires, why are you not buying Firestone? That's the tricky part of this.
Sure.
Can you sit down with this friend, and I call them real talk moments. Hey, dude, where are you at with this? I step back because somebody had those conversations with me.
Yeah.
And I still have to have those firefighters, the guys who've been there and done that, to have those checks and balances, those sounding boards, like you said,
Well, I think real talk moments are super important, and I think people shy away from them because they're difficult. And I think that when you find yourself looking for mentors or you find yourself looking for a jury of your peers, friends, like I was alluding to before, how I've developed this incredible network that I can trust, and I believe that they have my best interest at heart, it's because they're willing to have those hard conversations with me, and for that I am incredibly grateful
Exactly.
for that. And
Well,
that's
how
what you
big a
need.
friend are you?
If everybody is telling you yes, if everybody's telling you there's no issue, if everybody's telling you to do more, all this shit, and nobody is putting up a stop sign to you ever, the people in your life are enabling you. They're not being honest and upfront with you.
Well, that comes into, man. So, like I said, the department I just lateraled out of, it murdered me leaving these boys.
Yeah.
It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. There have been 2 jobs that I shed tears leaving. One was this little town in the Mid-South, and then the one most recent. I love these kids something violent because I got them through a 16-year-old fatality car accident. I was the one they leaned on when we're pronouncing a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid dead. That meant so much to me, and that's where I've had these conversations going, hey, FDIC is coming up. Don't go buy $200 worth of FDNY shirts and stickers. Go shake hands with people.
Yes.
Andy Plofkin is a dear friend of ours. I went to FDIC when I was at that combination department in 2016. We just had a fire not even weeks before, and we had like 5 or 6 sections of hose get burned through. And my fire chief was like, hey, I don't want my guys getting burned anymore. Will you do me a favor and go try to fix this? Next thing you know, I'm rubbing knuckles with this dude from Elkhart Brass. 2 weeks later, even at nowhere, Vermilion County, Indiana Fire Department, this guy is coming to flow water with us. Those experiences turn into, hey man, go to FDIC and meet people.
Yeah.
Because you never know, 5 years down the line, you might be calling this guy going, hey dude, I just encountered this. What do you think?
Yep. I love it.
And what's so cool about the job, as many firehouses as I've visited, been in, worked in, they're all the same personalities. You know, my wife makes the joke, it's the same guy, different font. Up to
There you go.
including, no, seriously, think about it. All of us have the same freaking camo carbon shorts and the long sleeve, IAFF shirt. But it's the same job everywhere. A shift is still pissed because B shift took their ketchup. C shift is pissed because B shift didn't clean. You know what I mean? Going out and finding those guys that are sharing those experiences and being able to pick up the phone with a brother or sister and go, hey man, what do you think about this?
Yep.
That is what makes this job cool, and that's what got me into it.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. So what's the future look like for you, man? We're over an hour already. I mean, we try to keep these to an hour. You and I could go all day long.
Hell yeah, man.
What's the future look like for you? Are you excited?
I make the joke, I'm just a junkie looking for his next hit. I'm just gonna keep doing my thing, man. Where I'm at on the job is I'm having a ball because I've learned how to learn and I've learned how to teach.
Yeah.
I work with a awesome, absolutely awesome group of guys. My administration, they're firemen's firemen,
Love it.
My dad, one of his old drivers just got made lieutenant last year, I think. We have an engine company class that we kind of travel our area and put on and just teach guys, the trade, the street smart, real talk engine company stuff. We've been doing that for the past couple of years, so we're trying to keep taking that forward. Good. And getting out. It's going back to, it's called Generation Water, for crying out loud.
Nice.
But just, just hanging out.
Are you excited? Do you love? I mean, love it. Are you just still in love with it?
I am absolutely in love with the fire service. I have found, especially through atmosphere is everything in a firehouse. If you don't have it, if you don't have culture, you're not going to be able to retain people.
Yeah.
But the department I just lateraled to, I told you I took a pretty decent pay cut, but I can safely say I work with firemen. What's cool is my lieutenant, we're the textbook old school firehouse. I'm Italian, he's Irish. He's like third or fourth generation.
Yeah.
You know, I can't swing a dead cat without guys who has had family on the job.
Yep. I love it.
So just coming in and guys just loving what the job is about. Drink your coffee at shift trade, you know, bust each other's balls, and then be ready when it kicks off and hope and pray that you're first in.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, and it's so cool that I'm at a point in my life where I found out how to put the brakes on and enjoy where I'm at.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, brother, because, you know, even just in the short 5 years that we've gotten to know each other and know your family, your father and yourself, I mean, I've seen a lot of change in your own life. And, you know,
Sure.
Through growing older comes maturity, and you're now married and you have children, and all of that plays to, you know, where you are today and that maturity that you find within the fire service. And I have to say, man, I've always enjoyed your friendship. I've always enjoyed your storytelling. Sometimes I have to cut you off because you love the talk, and I absolutely love that. You and your dad, you guys could go for hours and hours, and I could sit there and just listen. I mean, I love it, and I love the way you talk about the fire service. It's infectious. And I know every time you send me texts every once in a while, pictures of your young guys working or something, and they're proud. They're like proud papa moments for you. And
They are. That's,
yeah.
you know, I knew I hit a turning point in my career. I always joke, you know, I'd cut a toe off for a first in nozzle job. I knew I hit a turning point in a career when I looked at a 19, 20-year-old kid and I said, grab the pipe and follow me. And it just dawned on me, it clicked. I was like, holy shit, I made it.
Yeah,
you know,
I love
like,
that. It's cool.
Yeah, who doesn't like being on the nozzle? But I mean, hell, man,
But it's fun to watch that young kid be on the nozzle next to you.
yeah,
right?
tapping him on the rear. Come on,
that's
man,
right.
you got it.
That's
you
right.
got it.
And
That's what it's all about, man.
yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's what your father did for you, and now you're doing that for the guys that are coming up behind you. And I just really, I think that's a great way to wrap this generational conversation, the conversation today about, you know, your own career and what it's like to, you know, love the fire service, man. And, Bo, thank you, brother, for joining me today. What a great conversation. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thanks for having me on there. And
hell yeah. So where can you say you got an engine company class you're doing with your father, right? So what? Give me a little something on that, and where can people find you or reach out to you?
Well, so I believe it or not, I'm off social media.
Hey,
I kind of went grid. His Instagram is capyuck233. You have my info. If someone is genuinely curious about it, going back to network, make the connection for me.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
It's best if people text me first. But this class, what we did was a few years ago, I got pissed. I was like, we have guys doing 30 minutes of nozzle, and then you're cleared. You're good to go. Hey, man, go fight fire. When you don't know how to be a nozzle man. And so what we did was we kind of took Jeff Shoup's teachings. The works of the Andy Fredericks, may he rest in peace. Dude, there's not a coffee mug, sticker, fire helmet I have that doesn't have an Andy Fredericks sticker on it.
Right.
We big fire, big water, relative superiority from Brian Brush, nozzle forward, obviously. We took all of these and we condensed it into a more relatable class for kind of the typical Midwestern fire departments, where you don't have, 50 guys on an assignment showing up. You have 12.
Right.
It's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of bare bones basics, but balls and basics. What else do you need on the job?
Love that. Balls and basics.
Well, don't just my dad can't take credit for that. His first engine officer, Captain Feed, that was his claim to fame. Balls and basics. That's what it's all about.
I love it. It's good. Bo, thank you, brother. Thank you very much. And if anybody is interested in continuing the conversation with Bo, please reach out to us through our DMs or leave a message on the podcast notes, and we'd be happy to get you in touch with each other. But Bo Yelich, thank you, brother, for joining me today. I appreciate you, man. Hang right here. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, pal.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Another great episode with a great guest. Everybody's got a story, and we're out to capture them all. So do me a favor. The story that was told today, the experiences and knowledge shared today, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we are making the job better. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Send us an email, podcast@nationalfireradio.com. Tell us your thoughts, ideas, critiques, anything in between. Let us know. Send us an email. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. National Fire Radio.